once again, we're all here to kind of understand where customer success fits into valuations, and we've got like the most brilliant panel I've ever been part of here with us, who are going to give us just brilliant insights on this topic. But before we get there, I'm trying to get a sense for the audience, for myself and for them. But rather than how many people are working in the company, we're going to go about it in a different way. So relative to the companies you work at, how many of you have only gotten to the point where you've raised seed money? Anyone? Okay, we've got a couple. How about people who've gone through their Series A? All right, another one. Any Bs? All right, a few more. So, like, I think everything's going to be relevant. How about Cs, Ds, post-seed? People who've taken debt financing? Or people who don't work at companies? Are there a bunch of publicly owned company people out there? A couple? Yeah. Okay. We're going to be startups who want to know how you get money for customer success. Fantastic. Oh, so, and one last thing before I get into the panel. Tonight I'm going to try to have you interject a few questions. I'm talking a little bit now, but I'd like to limit that. So if the panelists talked about like 2 or 3 things, if you've got a 4th one, like how does this impact our valuation? I'm going to try to give you a chance to do that. So, but I'm going to start by introducing the panel, and I'm going to start with the far end. So a lot of you know Boaz. He's the Senior Vice President of Customer Success at OpenGov, which does public sector budgeting and performance management, things like that. So from a size perspective, since I asked you all, they took their C in 2017, and they're looking for a D right now. So part of the reason Boaz is on the panel is because he kind of represents the other side of the table, and he's looking for money right now, so a different perspective. Relative to him, MBA from Carnegie. Prior to OpenGov, he was the EVP of Customers at WalkMe, VP of CS at Mastery, which was acquired by Intel, VP of CS at NewScale, which was acquired by Cisco, and GM of Free Markets, which was acquired by Ariba. So there's like a trend going here. Any of you people...
Free Markets went public and then went public.
Okay.
One more.
But, so like, if you have any interest in equity events or getting acquired, you may want to talk to him later. So anyway, I'm going to move this way to Lou. So Lou is one of our VCs. She's the founder and managing partner of Fusion Fund. And Fusion Fund, and I'm going to read this, invests in globally disruptive companies using innovative technologies to drive systematic change. Now, if you want to know what that means, I've got an example. So they're an investor for Mission Bio, and Mission Bio's proprietary single-cell genomics platform was named one of the Science top 10 innovations of 2018. So high-tech stuff changing the world. As for Lou, she has a Master's of Material Science from Stanford. If you read into her background, there's stuff about education at Harvard, Oxford, and MIT as well.
No MIT.
Oh, no MIT. Oh, okay. So I take that back.
Not just Stanford, Harvard, and Oxford.
Yeah, poor thing. Anyway, she's also twice been nominated or listed as one of Forbes 30 under 30. Recently, she was, let me get this right, one of the 100, young global leaders, one of the 100 brightest to be elected as one of the young global leaders for the Council and the World Economic Forum. I mean, at 23, was it 23 when you sold your first company?
Yeah.
Her first company was acquired for north of $10 million. So another great person, and like I told you, this was a great panel. Last but not least is Abhishek Sharma. He's a principal at Nexus Ventures. So Nexus is early stage, about $1.5 billion under management, focused on seed and Series A. So whatever, 500K to about 10 million. Global team, North America and India pride themselves as one team. They like are not heavy-handed, but they give strategic guidance. So he's a perfect person to talk about customer success. He sits on like 5 boards, one of which is Ask Nicely, which we should all know about. Other hot companies like Apollo IO. And in his role, he focuses on data-driven healthcare companies' early investment. So, two things. One, he's got a good VC perspective, and if you're talking with your board members, he's got that perspective as well. So, relative to our topic tonight, I want to start out with a question, and honestly, I don't care who jumps in and starts out. But kind of foundationally, why should companies invest in customer success organizations?
Okay. Most of us work, I think, in SaaS. Anybody here doesn't work for a SaaS company? So most people, the economy is moving more and more towards services, more and more into shared services. And in this environment where you have to retain customers because you get less of the total long-term value from them in the initial sale, and you get much more of the value from customers ongoing, you have to maintain that customer. And to maintain that customer, you need to make sure that they get value from whatever it is that you sold them, right? In the quote-unquote the old world of enterprise software or licensing or hardware, most of the value that the vendor got from the customer, the vendor would get from that initial sale. In fact, it was in the 70s and 80s percentage from the total long-term value. So most of the focus was on sales, and if you sold, you got most of the value, and that was okay. Some people invested more into their customers, some less. The financial incentive was not there. In today's environment, there's a much stronger financial incentive because you normally get somewhere between 5 and 10% of the long-term value in that initial sale, and you have to work for the rest of it. Hence, the focus on customer success.
Fantastic. Any other comments?
I think I totally agree with you because, especially for SaaS company, it's critical. Not even for the SaaS enterprise software company, we also invest also deep tech company. So sometimes we heard from founder, they're working on disruptive technology. So technology is the most important thing. But even for disruptive technology, the true business opportunity is to apply it to empower the existing industry, which means have to address a true problem in the industry, be able to apply this disruptive technology to empower the existing player to improve the efficiency, which means customer success is very important because their feedback could be very valuable feedback for founder to continue upgrade their technology, and meanwhile potential contract, pilot program in the long term would really make this company become one of the major players in the industry. So I really feel like Silicon Valley had this strong concept about the disruption. I was trying to be disruption, but now we really need to think about how we could better engage with traditional industry.
Yeah, I think what I would add is, I think building and selling software has never been easier than 2019. The way products are built, I think building software is really easy, and that's why any category today we look at, there's tons and tons of competition, and that's becoming a real problem. And back in the day, I think, even today, there's always been there's a lot of discussion around moats and competitive advantage. And I think reality is in most businesses, the moat comes down to customer experience. And I think small to big, private to public companies are realizing that the only way to differentiate yourself for most of the businesses is to really provide a superior customer experience. And that's why I would also argue that it's transcending from just being a function level priority to in some ways CEO level priority, because I think smart founders and smart CEOs realize that their enterprise value in some sense is directly tied to customer experience.
So when should smart founders and CEOs start building on customer success?
I'll say earlier is better. Even when we invest in earlier stage, C stage, even pre-seed. Even at earlier stage, some founder may argue when we talk with the big corporate, do they really want to work with us? But actually, most of the time, it's not only about really getting a contract back. It's getting to opportunity to exchange the insights. What is the issue in the industry? What is the technology could be potentially as a solution? And then, I talk with lots of the Fortune 500 CTO. They're very open-minded to work with small startup to start a pilot program, maybe potential small contract. And then start from there, they could give a 7-people team $2 million contract pre-seed C after Series A. I think earlier is always better. Another thing is big corporate, they're very busy. So if you do not put yourself under their radar early on, once they build a relationship with others, they won't just do a comprehensive research on the market, who's available outside and pick the best one. You just work with whoever came to them first and also good enough.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is, I think as early as the product architecture and roadmap is being designed, because I think by the time you really need to set up a CS team, it's a bit too late, because true success will only happen when, first of all, you're building the right instrumentation to collect the data, what the customer journey is looking like. In some ways, I feel, you mentioned my other half that I invest in healthcare. In some ways, I think the whole customer success domain needs to be a bit more preventive, not like reactive, how our US healthcare has been. And I think by the time we are just setting up the teams, it's a bit too late. I think we need to start investing resources right when the product is being designed.
I'll try to be a little controversial, and I would say that you don't have to necessarily have a customer success function. If your product matches exactly what the customer needs and what the salespeople says, you don't need customer success. But
So what you're saying is you need customers.
the chances of that happening are very low. There are some examples for solutions of just working perfectly in the app world in business to consumer. Right? Some of the apps that we use have no customer success. We just download them and they work very simply and easily, and it's what we wanted and what we got, and we don't need anybody to help. In the business to business world, especially if you need change management, if you disrupt something, if you change, salespeople tell you what you're going to get when you use our solution, plus a bunch of other things to help you. To set it up, to integrate to other systems, to train, to coach you how to use it. All of that is customer success, so you have to have it. And I totally agree. If you think about customer success as something that doesn't only help the customer, but also help you understand what the customer wants so you improve the product, the sooner the better.
So let me pick up on what you just said. If we start early, what should the focus be? I don't know, if you talk to customer success executives or practitioners, they do a lot of different things. But really early, seed A, what are your thoughts on where they should focus?
Oh, you say, well, you're expecting it A and seed and maybe B, and I can talk about maybe later.
Yeah, sure. I think for earlier stage, I agree with it, not necessarily you have to deploy lots of resources and capital into it, but it has to have a focus. Like for seed stage, I figure sometimes funder could really use their customer feedback as an angel feedback. Like we expecting to have angel investor, and angel user is very important as well. And in the first 1 year or even 2 years, the product may change the format, change the business model. Also changing can happen, but how you make sure you're heading to the right direction. The feedback from the customer is going to be most useful. So I feel making a more interactive process, not necessarily talking to the decision maker at this stage, but more interacting with the manager level and also direct user level, engineer level. And then after product being matured, then directly go to the decision maker, try to get a contract. That may be create a post-A stage.
I totally agree. If you think about it, you're a very, very young startup, you just raise a little bit of money, you're building your first product. Do you really care about renewal? There's no such concept, right? Do you really care about upsell? You don't have what to upsell to, right? It's your first product. What you care about is that the customer will be deployed quickly and be really happy. And what you want from them is feedback on everything that is not working well. And that's the focus of customer success early on. Then as you start to grow as a company, more commercial discussions happen because you start to have more products, you have more customers, you want to retain them, you want to start growing them. The metrics will change over time, right? Your focus as a team will change over time.
Yeah, and also I think in early stages you're graduating from problem market fit to product market fit, or at least trying to graduate from one to another.
Problem market fit? I never heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, what I mean by problem market fit is, are you even solving a real problem, or are you just thinking there's a problem out there? And I think in that process, when you're really formalizing the product, what you were mentioning earlier, that I think the more the interaction can happen, whether you call it customer success or somebody else, but anybody who's dealing with customer engagement, whether it's a salesperson, marketing person, customer success, doesn't matter what you call that at. But I think more interaction with the product person, and often in early stages, the product person is one of the founders. I think the product just comes along better, and the customer success in a way starts baking in much earlier than the product game.
I want to add one point, echo what you said, the Palo market fit. We also talk about like founder, we want to see founder work on something people need, their clients need rather than clients like. When people like something, they feel it's awesome, super cool, you're working on some super awesome product, but they won't necessarily gonna pay for it. But if you're working on something people really need, they're gonna for sure pay for it. No matter they like it, the designer does not like it. And how to figure it out is a problem market fit. You need to get the feedback from the people you're expecting them to pay.
So let's say that we've got a customer success team who's doing that really well, right? They're in touch with their customers, like Lou suggested, maybe users first. And as they understand the real need and that grows, you go more senior, and then they get money from you, which they're very happy about. And then like it's post-day money, or you guys do follow-ons. Where do they go next? Like what advice would you give to these people after they raise their A round? How their focus might change from this product?
I think, so one is about metrics, which anybody would tell you that you should focus on net revenue retention, and not just blindly be in love with the ARR terminology, because ARR is like also more in vogue in fashion. Everyone is like, doesn't matter whether it's a recurring business or not, talks about ARR, at least here in Silicon Valley. I think in terms of metrics, it's net revenue retention, but I would say, and more the better. Some of the companies also, the good ones that either got bought or went public, we also investments like Zoom's as well. Even in Qualtrics, they all had like 140% net revenue retention rate. So higher the better, and over 100, nothing like that. But I think it takes a while for those metrics to truly reflect signal. In early stages, you don't know what signal, what's noise, because the sample of customers is such small. But I think in some intangibles which we have seen some of our companies work on as they are preparing from one route to another in early stages is also focusing on intangibles, that how much advocacy can you drive, using, let's say, customer feedback, and you can make some of that advocacy tangible, like by, let's say, driving reviews of G2 Crowd or Trust Radius, which are pretty much like Yelps and Glassdoors of SaaS world. So I think focusing on advocacy and also looking at customer success not as a annual event where everyone gets into a huddle for renewals and upsells, but more as a continuous process. And that has nothing to do, in my opinion, with what tooling you use. I think a lot of people talk about, oh, I have Gainsight, oh, I have this. I think tooling is like how you address it, but fundamentally, whether the entire company, including the CEO and the board, are they customer centric or not?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's no matter it's pre-A or post-A, it's like a non-stop journey. It's like founder has to do non-stop fundraising, and unfortunately, founder also has to non-stop, customer success efforts. Because even you engage well with the engineer, with the manager level, with the VP level, still more people you have to engage, because you want to expand your business not only within one division, one sector, but also to the whole corporate. After whole corporate, whether they could be your benchmark customer, and they could be the one who vouch for you and become the industry standard, then push bottom down to other potential customer also to use your product. So it's a non-stop process. So yeah. But I think that the key part is try to use different approach talking to different type of people. For example, when really understand how the decision making process in your potential client. For example, sometimes with our founder, especially technical background founder, engage with the engineer so well, they really like using the product. But the CFO is the one making the decision. And CFO only care about numbers. You only tell me, okay, engineer is more happier by using this technology, does not matter to them, they want to see the numbers. And then their COO also making the room, we're gonna be part of the decision-making process as well, and what they care about. And also having different people talking to different type of decision maker to make sure process gonna run much faster.
Can I ask a question instead of giving an answer? When you meet
No, sure.
when you meet with companies towards an A round, right, fairly early, and you look at lots of metrics for sure, which are metrics in the customer success arena that you look at? What matters to you?
For us, for Series A stage company, unfortunately, now the metrics of Series A is much higher compared with a couple of years ago. Now, people, like in general, investors are looking for at least $1 to $3 million revenue for the typical SaaS company for raising a Series A round. For healthcare, it's different. Healthcare normally Series A is a post FDA, just get some early revenue. But for in general, the ARR, the booking number matters. Another thing is the numbers of potential clients on the pipeline. How much is close in the next year, and what is the upcoming ARR. Another thing is the growth rate. Like compare with last year to this year, whether you have like 300% of growth or only 20%.
So those tend to be more sales metrics.
Yeah.
How about on the customer success side of retaining, onboarding?
Yeah, that's the part is that there's a lot of revenue contributing by the recurring revenue. That definitely be a very good signal, like positive signal. Another thing is, as I mentioned, if there are a lot of customers on the pipeline and a lot of new customers onboarding, the growth rate is pretty fast. That's also a very good positive signal. We also do reference check, like no matter earlier stage or Series A, B stage, we definitely do reference check. One reference is with the customer.
Yeah, I think we focus on both leading indicators and sort of, I would say, lagging indicators, if I can put it that way. I think I always look at NPS or like the CSAT scores, that the product has, how it has been trending, and then diving deeper on is there an explicit bias into an NPS, because a lot of times you're just capturing feedback from customers that you want to, and not like the ones who are truly unhappy. The lagging indicator, I would say, is we look at net revenue retention rate, which is obviously a function of your renewal rate and upsell rate, and how that has been trending historically. Often at Series A mark, I think we see a lot of the companies I think are getting smarter, and they try to make the net revenue retention look good by increasing prices, because that goes into upsell, and that's a classic tool to make your retention look good. So I think that's just, I would say, basic sanity of check we also look at. And third thing, which is more and more we are focused on, is that based on what your average sales price or ACVs look like, and what your churn rate or renewal rate looks like. If they are low, that and the percentage of customer success cost as a percentage of revenue, that's very high, then often we believe that's a very expensive way to build a business. So if your ACVs are very low, then you better figure out ways how to keep your CS team and cost structure lower the better, because you are literally selling $1 bill for 80 cents and calling your revenue.
Great, so that's a great transition question into kind of this topic of valuation, right? And maybe in a broader sense, how you judge companies, right? So I walk in, we're looking for a Series A, I happen to be the head of customer success. What do I do that you can see that impacts our valuation and your desire to have us be one of your portfolio companies?
Can't be both.
Yeah, I think the simple answer is what again, I'm probably repeating myself. What does the churn look like? Because that's an indicator of what's the predictability of revenue stream. Because two companies both with 2 million ARR, but one having really high churn. Obviously, valuations are nothing but net present value of discount, future discounted cash flows, and more the churn, that means predictability is lower, and same cost that you're acquiring to, incurring to acquire a customer, right? It'll just, your CAC LTV ratio is basically pretty bad. So I think churn is one, and second is, second is, I think, what I just said, that if the customer success resources are, if you're 50% of ARR you're spending in this customer success, and even like every $1,000, $2,000 customer, you are like throwing a lot of CS resources, then often I don't think it's valuation should be lower.
Abhishek, one question on this platform. What I have seen is that initially a lot of the startups make for bodies at a problem, and when they see a pattern, they start then automating a lot of those exercises. Have you seen that pattern in the startups where initially all the problems that customers are reporting, you ask people to take care of that in form of customer success, and then slowly you see the pattern and bring it all together in the product?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because I think starting with automation is probably a bad idea, because you don't even know what to automate. So initially, when you are human in the loop, and a lot of, some of my portfolio companies where, let's say when there were 5 people or 10 people, I think a lot of time, I think it's a good practice for even the CEO to be or all the founders to be, maybe turn by turn, every Thursday, every Friday, whatever, just be listening to, all the support conversations, and that way, I mean, it not just helps you, you're right, in customer success, but also whoever is dealing with the product, you know what 5 features to cut instead of adding 5 features, or which is the right customer. If you have a salesperson, what does my ideal customer profile look like? And yeah, you're right. Over time, you know what to automate and where you still want a high touch human.
Yeah, I feel like late stage might be more metric driven, and for earlier stage, if you actually use A-run as an example, most likely in Series A-run, I would say, other metrics, for sure, if you have better metrics, it definitely helps. The most important part is really the reference check with the customer on that side, because we're for sure gonna do the reference check, and we're gonna talk with our customer in different level, no matter is engineer directly work with them, or decision maker. That feedback gonna matter a lot, and also gonna have impact on the valuation. But for Series A stage, A-run, B-run stage valuation, somehow I figure we're at this. So it's good and bad for both sides. We have too much capital in the Silicon Valley right now. So you can see the valuation could have a huge range in Series A round and B round. Not necessarily directly relate to the revenue or metrics. Maybe sometimes founder got pissed. It feels like that company does not really have anything, but how come they got 100 million valuation or 50 million valuation? So that's the reality. We have to admit that we have too much capital here. We're gonna have more capital here. I was catching up with one of my friends. He's a CTO at Blackstone, and he said they're gonna launch a small fund focused on early and growth stage. I'm like, how small? $5 billion. So yeah, he's like, it's a small fund. I'm okay. It's a small fund. So that's one example. But it will be. I heard more similar situations happening. We'll have more capital in the valley. So valuation gonna go a little bit not necessarily reasonable or logically, but I feel for founder it's very important. Always think about long term about what is the right valuation to have right now for especially for A stage and B stage, because I think we're gonna for sure go through the cycle, and there will be lots of companies go through down run. Once down run happens, it's really hard to reverse the situation. But most of companies have down runs because they have a reasonable high valuation in the earlier stage. So be cautious when someone offers you pretty high valuation term sheet. This afternoon I was talking with one of my portfolio companies. They just offered by the strategic investor with a valuation of 70 million pre-money valuation, but they haven't got they haven't got any revenue yet. So I'm like, really you want to take this term sheet? Because for next round you have to justify the number by generating more than 10 million yearly revenue within 1 or 2 years. Is it possible? So I think that's the part founder really need to think about short-term gain and the long-term gain, and how to balance out and choose the right investor to work with. Not necessarily who has the big check is always the big part.
SoftBank is killing the VC.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I 100% agree with you. There's so much capital, and there's a school of VC, or I mean, like there's a school of venture capital out there where the view is that hey, how do you grow 5x, and let's work the math backwards. How much money do you need to get there? And I think it's happening more in spaces that are reasonably undifferentiated. And the view is that how do you suck the oxygen out of the market fast and just throw money at the problem. I think the time will tell, but I think that approach works very well. But when everything is going top and right, just like ServiceRocket's logo. But I think there is, but I think but I think there is just downside can be pretty brutal because many of the companies, you're raising 50, 100, 150 million in venture dollars when the ARR is probably still 5 million. So you have to just be ready for that much more preference tag over you.
So you guys talked a little bit about numbers that may not be meaningful when a company's whatever quite young, right? So you can look at LTV, and if you throw a discount rate in there, that's reasonable for like a C round. These things become meaningless. So what should a head of customer success, like if they're part of the team, what should they bring in? Like someone mentioned references. Like what should they bring in? And maybe as importantly, what's useless information when you see it for like somebody coming in to raise Series A capital? Customer success in.
Oh, sorry. I think it's working now, right?
Yeah,
Is
it
it
is.
working?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I think for the customer success information, like I mentioned about reference, right? I think like the most valuable, like the good reference I heard from some customer reference check we had with a founder. They are saying that, okay, I really like what they're doing, they help my life easier, reduce so much cost, and what is we willing to pay for this. And the most important message is he's like, okay, I'm gonna recommend this to other division of the company. I'm also open to also help them to connect with other company. I think that's the best, one of the best reference check we could get from the customer success side. I think not necessarily the founder has the perfect product. That's no problem. The important is, as I mentioned, is the early engagement, trying to get the early feedback and be able to adjust their product layer by layer, and to make the customer also get a feeling that I'm part of it. Because I'm part of this, product upgrading process. So when the investor asks for a reference check, when other asks for a reference check, I feel proud of this product success, so I'd be willing to work for it. I think that's the special unique that founder could think about when they try to get the customer on board to help them with fundraising.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I think one question I ask every time you're informal or formal reference check to customers is, what would it take for you to leave this product? And I think that often gives me an insight on whether it's a vitamin or painkiller. And that's one. And second insight I think often it ends up giving is, let's say if the cycles go south, and if the God forbid we hit another recession, or which will be the first set of products to be kicked out when I had to do a budget cut or cost reduction. And all the other way of asking same question that I feel has often yielded very good information is. This I ask often to when I'm talking to the CS teams or the CEO is that what would the world miss if you don't exist tomorrow? And I mean it's a very simple question, but I've seen like very nuanced answers come out of.
I think if you think about this question, my take on this is early on, if you're a very young company, you have few customers, you're looking for anecdotes, not statistics, right? You want to get a customer to say, I don't only like that product, but it helps me save money or make better decisions, something quantified. But it's an individual answer, right? I'm willing to promote it, or I'm willing to use it because you want to know why they want to use it. There's often some personal side to things. They like to be first. They like to talk about it in the news, whatever. That's not scalable necessarily. That gets you early adopters or innovators even before the early adopters. But what you want from a statistics is, do you save money from this, right? It's not a painkiller maybe, and it's not a vitamin, maybe it's a prosthetic, right? You don't have a leg, I'll build your leg for you, I'll help you run, you love it, you can. The longer you are, the more mature you are as a company, like the public company, right? If you think about public companies, no one asks them for the anecdotes, right? It's just, what are the numbers, right? We are now raising money as a D round, right? So tens of millions of dollars in money, and it's about scaling, right? We had the anecdotes, and we talked previous rounds about why people are passionate about this, and now we need to show that we can do it at scale. So we need to show the sales efficiency going up. We need to show renewals going up. We need to start to show many more numbers, because the anecdotes are not sufficient. When you're very young and you have a few data points, it's more about those anecdotes, right? But even the anecdotes, I would try to quantify as much as possible to some dollar amount. We are saving you X, we're helping you get that much more revenue, right? Something that's meaningful that you can build on.
So is this issue of, and I'll just call it ROI for lack of a better term, with customers, is that the second thing you look for? And what I'm thinking about is, you guys do follow-on. So you've done C, you've done A, you want to see kind of product market fit, maybe some expansion within accounts. NPS, does that matter? From a customers are happy perspective in early round? You think NPS? Or who cares?
No, I think NPS is quite important, and I think it's more important how those companies are operationalizing NPS, not just measuring it and putting it on a dashboard slide. My NPS is this or that, because that absolute number is less relevant in my opinion. I think what's more important is how do you sort of use every piece of positive feedback to drive advocacy, and every piece of mixed or negative feedback to close the loop with that customer by tying it with your systems of action, whether it's Zendesk or Intercom or whatever you use. I think, and NPS is also a leading indicator to, as I said, a lot of, it's like a smoke sensor in my opinion. You sort of know way before the problem is big and evident, and at least you can act on it if you know something is not going right. It's like before you hit the ICU, you can start taking preventive actions.
Okay, so my NPS looks good. I did a little bit of upselling, good customer references, right? Maybe even some advocacy that drives new revenue and new customers. Now what's next? Like, what do you want to see after that? How does customer success evolve relative to what they showed you? That matters.
I think another direct signal we like to see in the later stage is the sales cycle. Initially, company for sure start with a pretty long sales cycle, which is reasonable. But later on, if it really has a good customer success experience, then the selling cycle may be shorter and shorter. And not only apply to the company they're working with, maybe also apply to the future company. As I mentioned, once a startup company has several benchmark customers, it's much easier for them to working with other players in the same sector. So that's another signal we definitely are looking into. That's also a thing we try to help the founder. One thing we do as a portfolio management after we invest a company, we help them connect to the new customer, the CEO, CTO who directly make decision, and help them along the way to make the sales cycle shorter. Then generate the good signal for the late-stage investor to put in capital.
Right. So I'm going to go to the audience now. So you've heard a number of things that they think are important, but maybe in your mind there's something like, is this important too? Kind of a like, what about this aspect of customer success? So does anyone have a question they want to ask the panel? And we'll go to questions at the end that's just like, but what about this? Go ahead, Irene.
So you talked about what you do look for in terms of the NPS and kind of the value and the product feedback loops. What are the red flags that you see that are definitely going to make you choose not to fund a company on the other side of it? What are the things that you want to look for us to avoid?
I can tell you from the perspective of, someone that looks at other companies to engage with, maybe even to acquire, and it's predominantly around which metrics you don't measure.
What you're not measuring.
Right, regardless of what the numbers are, you don't measure renewals, gross and
Yeah.
net. You don't measure NPS. If you don't, then you don't have the right signals, you don't have the right process. Whether your numbers look good or not, you don't know.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, then I don't want to
I
work with you
understand.
because you're
I
not.
want to hear from you.
No, I actually agree with you, because I think the reason both of us were trying to think about what is the red flag, I can tell you were thinking about as well. It's because I think in earlier stage, when Bernie Mac founder came to us saying that we measure this, we did not measure that. But most of the scenario, we found the red flag is the founder does not have the mindset, really thinking about that customer success is important, and whether they have time to engage with customer, whether they have the putting the effort resources to do that. We're not trying to be super, picky or super mean that in earlier stage founder has to do everything. Because
Sure.
founder only have 2 or 3 people,
Yeah.
only have limited resources. But the key thing is whether they have this mindset, have the constructive plan, and they have the resources and they're ready to deploy it when they really think about addressing this issue.
So customer centricity, like if they aren't talking to their customers.
Yeah, so even, we have founder, even very early stage, C stage, came to us saying that they want to do this. They have the mindset to do this, but they're asking for help, like what is the best approach, whether there's a right connection to help them start an engagement. Even with that, we're okay with it. It's not a red flag. It's not necessary founder has to have all this terrific connection to start a customer engagement, but if they realize it's an important criteria for the early stage, it's already good.
Prioritize.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a very good question. I think investors are also contextualizing the numbers in the context of what it means for that particular business. And what I mean by that is, let's say, if my net revenue churn for the month is 1%, and it may be okay for some businesses, it may not be, it may be absolutely not okay for some businesses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
depends
And
on the.
and why? Because let's say if my contract size is let's say 5,000 a month,
Mhm.
and I know that if I look at what my sales guys or marketing guys are spending to acquire one customer, let's say $10,000. So and 5,000 is not entirely going into my margin. It's there is a gross margin on that 5,000.
Yeah.
Let's say it's good 100%. Let's say, although these days I've hardly seen companies that have 100% gross margin. But let's say all I'm trying to say is that if you are spending a lot of money and your churn is high, you're not even able to recover your cost of acquiring a customer.
Yeah.
Where your LTV to lifetime value to cost of acquisition ratio looks like really bad, then it's I'll be surprised. I think so many companies that look like SaaS businesses, they're essentially the services companies.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
So you mentioned like CAC to LTV ratio. When does that kick in and why is it so important?
This is like, how even a consumer business tracks, what their lifetime value. It's like, simple, for every dollar I spend, how many dollars can I make over the lifetime? And then lifetime value is a function of gross margin, what's the price point, what your retention rate. That's why I mentioned lifetime value, because if half of the people are leaving me, let's say if every customer gets me like $100 and half of them leave after a year, then essentially my lifetime value is somewhere between 150 to something like that. So I have to make sure that I'm finding innovative ways to acquire that customer. And if my lifetime value is smaller, I can't be spending my dollars on higher, because that has implications on also how marketing is operating in the company. If your revenue retention is good, there are companies, let's say, what I was mentioning a while back, that companies like Zoom and others, where let's say net revenue retention is 140%. In a way, if you think about it, they are compounders. Every year, your existing revenue is compounding. So I think that those are the signs of good business. So that's why I think LTV to CAC ratio gives good insight on what's really going on in the company.
Any other metrics that come to mind as we talk about that ratio?
I mean, a lot of people, there are so many ratios in the valley, and I don't want to get into
Magic
but
number.
I will get quick ratios in that. I think there are so many other ratios, frankly, they are a function of how much, I can grow at any rate, depending on how much money you are willing to, let me spend on it. So, I mean, metrics like quick ratios are useful, but they measure basically how much new revenue you are adding every month, and divided by how much you are losing. But I can add any amount of revenue if you give me dollars to do that. But that doesn't make my business good. It's just that I'm burning too much money to, make sure my bucket never gets empty and I'm spilling too much water, even though it's a leaky bucket.
Very good. So, pulling on that topic a little bit more, getting back to customer success. The ratio has two parts, and I'm not saying it's obvious the LTV part, but it kind of is, right, from a customer success perspective. How about CAC? Do you think customer success affects acquisition cost in an expect?
I think there's a concept of customer retention cost, which is different from customer acquisition cost. Right? Customer acquisition is more the cost of marketing and sales to get a customer. That's great. Then comes, what do you need in order to get that revenue in perpetuity for the next year and the one after? And maybe not early on, but definitely when you get to that B and C round, you want to calculate that number. And you want to get a good sense for it. That's what he says. I can increase retention rates, I can increase upsell, and whatever the metric is, if I can invest in another 3 CSMs and whatever, well, there's a cost to that. And if you don't incorporate that cost into your analysis, then it's kind of useless. So understanding, and this is something that fewer people measure, more people measure the customer acquisition cost, fewer measure the customer retention cost. I highly advise people to do that as early as possible, just so you have that framework of calculating.
Yeah, and also, there are a lot of these gospel rules floating around. I mean, you'll see everywhere if you Google, oh, your net monthly churn should be this or that. But I think the absolute truth is net revenue retention, if you look at it, because let's say if I lost $100 this month, and to calculate net revenue churn, I'm dividing it by what my, let's say, current ARR is. What if my ARR was triple that number? If I burnt $4 to like triple my ARR? So that doesn't diminish the problem. The churn, the magnitude of the churn problem remains the same. It's just that you are dividing it by 3 times more revenue. So you might say, oh, instead of 1% a month, now I'm 0.3% a month. So you can basically window dress metrics, but I think it's important to keep a view on what really is absolute metric to control and look at versus. So net revenue retention, I think, is a metric that I look at personally.
Yeah, I think totally agree with what you said, because especially with our Silicon Valley, because we have too much capital, lots of founders, they just try to drive the metrics by default too much. Does not really think about what is the cost. But the cost is definitely important, and now especially we need to really think of what is the meaning of getting VC money. VC money is not for a company to survive with, it's to help accelerate the process, the catalyst. So company need to show the metrics to show the potential sustainable business model, but meanwhile also show the potential to grow to a much bigger scale. So it's a very interesting balance. Founder need to think about how to allocate capital and how to make the metrics. You don't want to show a metrics seems too safe or too conservative without showing the huge potential growth and projecting the near future. But meanwhile, you have to show certain levels of sustainability.
Yeah, and to your point around CAC, I think there are like a set of products that are sort of more for business consumer, let's say, they are B2B. And I think there's so much attention and focus on them because there is a bit of virality in how you're acquiring and serving those customers. Whether you keep it open source initially or you sort of have a Dropbox or Airtable style, freemium kind of way to acquire customers. I think even if you have a somewhat higher churn, I think probably the brand looks much more attractive. That being said.
Fantastic. So just in summary, if I was the head of customer success and I could contribute to the net retention number, I would be of high value to an organization. Is that what I mean?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Good. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to ask any of you two, we've got probably 10 minutes left. What kind of questions do people in the audience have?
what are some of the examples that you guys have seen, approaches in small companies that really evolved you? And say, wow, this is really good customer success. Could you kind of share some examples?
I could give you a quick example. It's a very early stage company. I invested company is an enterprise software company. When I'm their first investor back in 2015, and after I introduced them to Microsoft, they closed Microsoft with 38 days. It's a small contract. It's less than $500,000, but they only have a team of 7. They're not Silicon Valley based. They're based in North Carolina. So it's not a very popular place for a really big corporation that recognize their value, but he was able to close in 38 days.
Fantastic. Other questions?
Have you ever walked away from an investment where you felt is the founder, the CEO, just didn't have customer centricity to him or her?
Yes, I have.
Yes, here as well. Yeah, several times.
Yeah, I think there are situations when I think founders also receive advice from many advisors, and sometimes there's too much focus on just metrics and dashboards, but if you back to what you were just saying, anecdote level questions around what the customer needs. Why? First of all, why are they paying for whatever they are paying you? And I think there are situations sometimes where there are not good answers around that you would expect.
More questions? Let me get back here with this mic.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm moving in that direction. No.
Bill's gonna jump up.
Yeah, I think, sorry, could I take it a longer route?
No, hi, thanks. The session was very insightful. So, in this age and time, how easy or difficult to bootstrap a company? Because I come from, in fact, I've been working in Zoho for the last 10 years now, and we are a 100% bootstrapped company. So, we have never taken external funding at all. So, in fact, my CEO says that we navigated 2 bubbles. One was .com bubble, and then the other one was real estate bubble in 2008, 2009. And we have actually claims that we are living in a bubble now, actually. So anytime this might crash, and you already can relate it to various government policies, changes and stuff like that, right? So he always says you try to bootstrap a company. So that's his advice in a way. So I just want to understand, because I've lived in India and I've worked in India too. So, and I've seen where this VC focus is extremely high in Indian context as well, because there's a lot of companies. Every company which start the operations now, they try to get VC funding versus bootstrapping. So very few people think about bootstrapping. So what's your thoughts on that, and how easy or difficult to bootstrap a company now in this age and time?
Yeah, I would say there are definitely companies on both sides. By the way, huge fan of Zoho and what Zoho has done. I would say bootstrap approach is for people who are okay with deferred gratification. Because you are not celebrated on TechCrunch, you are not celebrated on the Valley. If you are like valuation markups are not happening every few years or every few months. But there are definitely amazing companies, there are people that have done it, but that requires you need to have that amount of patience.
Right.
I think it's definitely is doable. There is another company you should check out called ERD Systems. You may have already seen it. They've been around for 25-30 years. Every property managers, every building I know, is their property management software. So there are like several examples like that. But as I said, it's not for folks who desire instant gratification, and it requires a lot of patience. Probably going against the grain as well. So I would even ask questions that why should sales be here, or like a lot of those questions.
Next question.
Hey guys, so my question to you is, for a early stage seed A company where capital is at premium. What advice would you give to founders on how to divide that capital between product, CSM, and the other functions in the company?
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's a really case by case. I would not say that for all the company has to do this, different healthcare have a different, because I used to run a medical device company before, so it's very different system, very complicated system to play with. But in general, for B2B business, you definitely want to deploy some resources, but not necessarily the majority of your capital. Another thing is how you try to work with customer success experts, right? When you're earlier stage, not necessarily need to have someone full-time engaged with the company. You could start off with some part-time, and also sometimes if you getting people part-time, you could fund the best one. Because for customer success experts, you don't want to work with the second tier, you want to work with the top tier, but top tier are very expensive. So try to work with them, start out with some part-time engagement, and once you raise more money and more result, more verification, and then you could move forward to deploy more capital.
Yeah, I wish I had one answer for all situations, but I would say, let's say you had a first $1 million review, I would use most of it to build product and use it in engineering. I wouldn't hire salespeople. Maybe one customer, it depends, again, hard to do a template, but maybe few in customer success to the extent needed. Ideally, founder should be customer success at some stage. Also the salesperson. And I obviously it's constraints, but I think initially a back focus should be product.
How to save cost is to have a very versatile CEO. So CEO not only could work on product, but also could do fundraising, could do sales, could be the major sales guy, could be the major customer successful guy before sales day. So.
And more sweat equity, the better initially.
No sleep.
You have a question right there?
Yeah, so my question maybe is a bit of a synthesis of all the different things spoken about so far, but I want to understand from your perspective as investors, how do you see the progression of customer success between, let's say, a bucket of Series A and B and C and D, from the success factors and outcomes perspective? What would you expect customer success to deliver in Series A and B? And how would they progress into C and D?
I think functionally the goals are similar. I don't think the goals change or what you're shooting for changes. It's just that as the organization becomes more mature, as you have a bigger roster of customers, you need Series A. You are not worried about having a CS leader, but as the company matures, as your team grows, you probably also need a leader who has right mix of experience and agility, because you can't afford to have only one and not the other as the team grows beyond a certain size. But I think end objective might be what you're shooting for is the same. Maybe one other thing changes depending on how your customer mix is changing as you grow from Series A to C. Maybe initially you only have smaller customers relatively, but you're doing either up market or down. So as your customer mix changes, maybe you also need to have more sense of prioritization, how you spend time. That's something you see.
I think again, in early stages, you give more explanation and more anecdotes. And you need to explain why the retention rate is X, Y, Z, and why it's not, or why isn't the growth in sales not what maybe somewhere else. And you need a lot of narrative. The more mature you are, the less that's important, and the more you need is the number to look where. So somewhere in there, kind of around B or so, you probably want to add other metrics such as cohort analysis, right? Not all customers are the same. Let's look at them based on when we got them or what segment they are at, and try to analyze at that level, which makes no sense to do when you're around A, and you have double-digit number of customers. How can you split them apart, right? So that helps.
Okay. Just as an extension, I was hoping to hear something related to scale and whether you see them, especially as on the verge between B and C, are they set up for scale, and what are the systems and infrastructure that's sitting behind specifically CS? So any sort of brief thoughts on that?
I don't think that's at least from our perspective, we won't really go that details into whether company set up the infrastructure. This business in general is a very result-driven business. So if the result really speak for themselves, not necessarily we need to check on to. If the company does not have the result, yes, we want to see whether they have the infrastructure in place.
Fantastic. So,
Let's do,
time for.
one more question.
There we go. Anyone?
Going once, going twice. Okay,
There we go.
last one.
Brave person.
Thank you very much for being here. My question is, have you come across unauthentic CS metrics? Have you come across unauthentic CS metrics?
Unauthentic.
Authentic. So do you mean someone fudging the numbers?
Yes.
Okay. So do you run into people who come up, there's numbers you want to see, and they tweak the numbers a bit? And how do you react to that?
I'd say sometimes it's hard to diagnose whether it was inadvertent or intentional. But definitely come across situations where churn was reported late, and there then. But I think the serious question that obviously you ask yourself and the company is whether the governance is and checks and balances are right, because if some customers cancelled in September and you come to know in January after the year ends, that's I'm not sure whether you call it misrepresentation, ignorance, or fudging. They are overlapping shades. So, and the other thing we have seen is but I would say that's none of the three, but which I talked about, that using price increase to show that your net revenue retention is 110%, even though you know that you increase prices by 25%. So it's like similar to real GDP growth versus nominal.
All right, so one, I want to thank everyone out here. Once again, our sponsors, but like I can't thank our panelists enough. And I hope all of you found it as valuable as I did, and I really want to thank you for taking the time to join us tonight.